what I'm talking about today is how coronavirus has moved your cheese and affected your brain. So, the many of you remember this book, Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson, the late Dr. Spencer Johnson, one of the great authors, great thinkers of our time. He wrote a book called Who Moved My Cheese, and it's a silly little book in some ways, but it's really an important book. And I pointed out that this book has never been more important. And let me tell you just a little bit about the book, just a little summary of it. In the book, there were 4 characters who went to the same place every day to get their cheese. And so one morning they showed up at this one place to get their cheese, and there was no cheese. There wasn't even a crumb to be seen. And so they looked around at each other, and 2 of them sat down. And the other 2 looked at each other and said, let's go find where the cheese has been moved. And they left. So the next day, the 2 that sat down came back to the same place, and then there was still no cheese there. And they did that day after day after day. Meanwhile, the other 2 were looking around for cheese. Well, you know what happened, right? The 2 that looked for cheese found it, and the 2 who didn't, they're not here anymore. So I think Dr. Johnson's story has never been more relevant and more powerful than today during this pandemic. And going forward in the post-pandemic era, there will be 2 kinds of businesses. The kind that will fail because they'll try to operate next December like they did last December before the pandemic, and they'll try to find their cheese where it used to be. The second kind will be the kind that will survive and thrive because they accept the fact that their marketplace has been turned on its ear, and it's caused them to look for new places to find their food, which when I thank my audience for their time, I say thank you for the food, because they're my customers and they provide me and my family with the food. So here's 2 questions to ask yourself today about the future of your business. First, and I really want you to ask yourself this question: do I expect to be in business next year? I mean, I think that's a gut check question we have to ask ourselves. And then the next question is, what do post-pandemic customers expect from my business today and tomorrow? You have to understand that expectations are changing, and you have to say, how are those expectations going to change, and what's it going to look like? Or as Dr. Johnson would put it, or how will customers move my cheese? So as we attempt to find our post-pandemic cheese, I want you to consider these new regular breadcrumbs that I came up with that hopefully will lead you to survival and beyond. First one is customer expectations for how you connect, communicate, and call on them will be different. Conform and comply quickly. We're doing this right now. I mean, Terry, Carol, it never occurred to us a year from now we'd be doing this. We had to pivot. We had to see what the new expectations were and connect and communicate and comply, which you guys have done. And by the way, when I look at these beautiful faces all over the world, this is amazing what I'm looking at right now. And I want to congratulate all of you for being part of this. The next breadcrumb is, how will customers expect you to deliver goods and services? How will that be different from before? You've got to make adjustments. You've got to change. And by the way, when you make those adjustments, don't be afraid to charge for customization. If you don't, you'll have new customers, but you won't have a business, because you're going to be doing more work. You're going to be doing different work. It's going to cost you more. Don't be afraid to charge for that customization, and explain that to customers. I've got to do more for you now. I've got to charge more for it. They're doing that for their customers. They'll understand. Marketing and advertising response will be different. You need to test as often as possible. The good news is we have testing tools that we can use now. Next, prospects and customers will have new technology and online expectations. Some people are not going to want you to call on them. They're going to want you to Zoom them. You got to be prepared for that. You've got to invest in these technologies, and you got to train your people. Customers will favor companies that didn't disappear on them. I call that ghosting. They didn't ghost during the lockdown. If you're still locked down, if you're still sequestered from your customers, don't stay away from them. Connect with them, contact them, and stay in contact with them, even when they aren't buying anything. The next breadcrumb is businesses that demonstrate character, leadership, and values like IEEW and all you folks are doing today. Your values, you're going to be rewarded for this. This is thought leadership. This is awesome demonstration of values and character and leadership. You're going to be rewarded from this. And I think if you behave this way with customers, you will be rewarded for this in due time. There's an Ecclesiastes passage I like. Cast your bread upon the water, and in time it will come back to you. That's what you're doing right now. The post-pandemic personal safety behavior of customers will range from fearful to cautious. Some of you I see wearing masks. Your customers are going to have those concerns. Be prepared for all interactions, from meetings to delivery, to adjust to those expectations. And finally, emotions, feelings, and sensitivity will be more in evidence. All of us are a little jumpier than we were 6 months ago. And we're going to continue to be until we eradicate this thing. So in our businesses, we've got to make sure customers know that we're sensitive to that. In the post-pandemic economy, my friends, customers have your cheese and they're moving it to a new place. I want you to seek the cheese, find the cheese, and when you do, you'll survive. So now I want to talk about coronavirus in your brain. See if you, those business owners out there, I want you to see if you recognize any of these conditions. You're stressed out, you're feeling you can't keep your head above water, you're having trouble sleeping, you're struggling with decisions. Am I doing the right thing or not? Well, the next decision, take me into bankruptcy. Well, those of you who've been in business a while are laughing because you eat that kind of stuff for breakfast. You eat stress for breakfast, right? Well, but neurosciences are talking about these things like it's a new condition. However, and they're saying that when faced with threats, our brains scour our long-term memory system for comparable experiences. And you know about that because you do this. The problem you solved last week makes the problem you're going to solve this week easier because we call on those experiences. Neuroscientists tell us that's what we do. And we use those to treat the new threat. Well, the global pandemic is new. Everyone alive today, this is new for them. We don't have any, when we search our memory banks, we don't have any coronavirus comparable examples to use. And that's changing things. That's adding stress to us. And I think we all need to recognize this. And as a hard-headed, knuckle-headed whitebeard out here who thinks he's tougher than everybody else, this has been hard for me to admit. I finally had to admit to my wife, I'm a little stressed right now. She's never heard me say that before. We have to admit this, even if we don't like to admit it. And I think it's important, and the neuroscientists tell us why. And they tell us this is why our small business brain, the one that eats stress for breakfast, has now become what they call COVID brain. That's right, we've all got COVID brain. And so this is a neuroscientific condition. And they're saying that the greatest problem is not always the risk itself, but how we think about the risk. And those are the authors of this idea. So let's attack that. Let's mount our defense where that is inside where those issues are. The threat, how we think about threats. It's inside our brain. It's between our ears. So let's mount our defense there. Let's have a few words with ourselves. And I'm going to recommend 3 words: ownership, expectation, and belief. Ownership. I want to encourage you to assume the small business ownership attitude. This is mine. As I face challenges in my business today, the only thing in question is how well will I respond to each one? And the future of my business depends upon the answer to that question. I must own the good, the bad, and the ugly. Expectations. Expectations are much more important than they are appreciated. We underestimate expectations, and I'd like to encourage you to think more about that. And I want you to have expectations, and you can have more than one. These are expectations for yourself, expectations for how you want your business to be. What do you expect your business to be? And it's not about your customers. This is about you. And I'm encouraging you, your prime expectation to be in 2020, surviving is winning. I want you to think about that. Surviving is winning. Your second expectation would be, I understand that and accept that survival will be uncomfortable and messy. Survival is not going to be pretty or elegant. You've got to deal with that. The third expectation, and this is really important, this expensive survival lesson must eventually pay dividends, like when the next version of coronavirus shows up. We'll mount our next defense on whatever else happens to us heavily on what we've done to deal with it right now. So that's your third expectation. Then belief. The last word is belief. Some small business owners, if you've been around a while, I know what's happened, and I've been there. There have been those moments when you couldn't call on anybody. Everything seemed to nobody was there. It was just you. It was in the dark in your office late at night, maybe on a Saturday morning when the business was closed, and you didn't know if you were going to make it to the next day. When that happens, when there's no one else there, the only lever you can call on is belief. And for me, that belief was believing in myself. And I'm telling you, I want you to believe in yourself. I know you can do it. I know you do it. I just want you to think about it. I want you to believe in yourself. And I want to recommend three business affirmations that I use all the time. This first one is my favorite. This is no hill for a climber, and I'm a climber. No hill for a climber. I say that out loud, my friends. These affirmations, I say it out loud to myself. This is no hill for a climber, and I'm a climber. And then the next one is, if it is to be, it is up to me. Now, I don't know who said that, but it wouldn't surprise me if Maya Angelou didn't say that. And then the third one is something Henry Ford is attributed to have said, if I think I can, or if I think I can't, either way, I'll be right. It's pretty powerful, isn't it? I want you to claim one of those. Make it yours. Find one of your own and say it to yourself out loud. These are the kinds of words I want you to have with yourself, not, I'm not going to make it, woe is me, in our pity party. Let's go to this direction, not the other. So in the new regular of the post-pandemic marketplace, I want you to own your reality with focused expectations, and I want you to believe in yourself. And when you do all that, I think you'll find your cheese. Thank you. I've enjoyed being with you.